All right, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Innovate, I want to thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, The Top Shelf Experience, an Innovative Twist on the Old-Fashioned. Innovate is a global online sampling and technology firm generating high-quality data from engaged panelists while providing 24/7 client service to thousands of market researchers around the world. In today's presentation, we will walk you through some techniques and strategies for bringing your client service and operations teams to the next level. I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Josh Bresner. I'm Director of Member Experience here at Innovate, and I'm very excited to have you all here with us today. Today's webinar should take about 25 to 30 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout, please submit them to the questions chat box. I'll keep track and make sure we get to them at the end. And with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Amanda Keller-Grill is Innovate's Vice President of Global Client Service and Product. Since Innovate's inception, she has built and trained our excellent team of project managers and oversees day-to-day client service operations as well as implementations of new technology and products. Welcome, Amanda. And Brittany Nelson is Innovate's AVP of Global Bid Management and Sampling. She oversees our stellar sampling team whose responsibilities include, but are not limited to, composing proposals and putting together sampling plans for all projects. She likes to refer to her team as farmers, because they help to build and cultivate relationships with internal and external clients. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you.
So with that, let you guys take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Amanda and I have been working together for a couple of years now, which is hard to believe. I guess time flies when you're having fun. But now is really the perfect time for us to share some of our tips on building the stellar teams that we have and how that translates into providing that first-rate client service. I know when Amanda and I were discussing this webinar and throwing out different ideas for themes, we really couldn't get away from alcohol. It might be because we talked late in the day on a Friday and it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? But we really felt like the old-fashioned was a great example. It's a drink that you can refashion by adding a little zing or a twist to, but you still have that base foundation that's so easily recognizable. Similarly, we're not trying to rewrite the book on core fundamentals to building up your excellent team. We're simply going to throw in and add some new methods that we hope you're able to take back with you and enhance your team and overall client service.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, taking a new twist on old methodologies isn't exactly new to this industry. I mean, we're constantly all evolving, keeping up with new technology, and there's always different new client demands too. So, but one thing doesn't change is we all have to work with diverse teams. In fact, our world just keeps shrinking due to technology like this GoToWebinar, and it becomes even more essential to kind of learn to create, manage, evaluate, and work within global teams. But there's always those times where you just don't gel with a team, and that happens. I remember a time really early on in my career, I was working with this team and we just couldn't get on the same page. It was like pulling teeth, with these type A personalities, procrastinators, overachievers, underachievers. I mean, we really couldn't get on the same track. And I remember thinking at that time, like, is this what corporate life is going to be like?
I think that's very common.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like in college, my experience went pretty seamlessly with group work. I think we had that common goal. It was get an A. And, maybe I was a little lucky with my scholars at UCLA, but coming into corporate life, I was really shocked. So I began to kind of think about, well, what drives people? What motivates them to succeed in the corporate space, and how can companies promote that? How can managers promote that? Because we all need to find this way to work together. So how can we facilitate that and make it easier to work together? And at the end of the day, that's what clients want, is they want to see this team that works together and gets their needs met. So why would they choose Smirnoff when they can have Grey Goose? I wouldn't. So I spent a lot of time kind of thinking about this and exploring this in my career so far, and have focused on building my team strategically and with this new twist. So, at the end of the day, and in a competitive space, we know our clients expect this top shelf experience. So we're going to show you today just some of our techniques to enhance your teams and kind of bring everyone up to the next level.
Right. So where do you begin? I would say the first step in achieving excellence is finding your crown royal. I'm sure we could all write an entire webinar on what questions are good to ask when you're interviewing, But over the years, I found that interviews are more about that gut internal feeling that you get when you meet with someone. I know when I first had a position as a manager and I was in charge of the hiring process, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I literally Googled questions to ask during an interview.
I think we all did.
Okay, good. Good to know I'm not the only one. But I Googled those questions. I wrote them down. You know, I combed through the skills that they listed on their resumes. I created a checklist for myself. I'm that type A person you mentioned earlier. And if somebody looks great on paper, they checked off everything on my list. They filled all the requirements of the job, and they had the experience, well, they were hired. While I did find some decent talent that way, I think it was pure luck. But after many years of experience and unfortunately a high turnover rate, I realized I probably shouldn't be trusting Google with selecting my candidates. I really needed to get to know the person behind the resume and make that human connection.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of your, Crown Royal, it can really range. It can range by company, department, specific job requirements, but by knowing your definition kind of globally and departmentally, that's kind of the first key to success. You can ask yourself certain questions like, what is my corporate culture? What kind of person or personality is truly a right fit? What am I really looking for? And what does this team need?
Yeah, I really couldn't agree with you more. I think once you have that understanding of the definition, you can then start interviewing by setting those clear and transparent expectations, and you ask the questions that really matter to you and your company. Remember, you're looking for a top shelf ingredient, not the well, and you want it to blend well with the rest of your cocktail or your team.
Yeah, I mean, so you can gather all these right pieces. You gather the right people, you've interviewed them, and then what's next? They've been hired. I think while it might not be the most intuitive to most people, I'd suggest you don't jump into job specifics first. If your employee doesn't really understand the scope of the company or, where their place is, I don't think that they can fully comprehend that role that they play and how they can drive the company to be successful.
Right.
Quick side note, like I actually remember starting off as a project manager in this space, and I was right out of college. It was my first job, and I was kind of thrown immediately right into the day-to-day of project management. And, at the end of my first week, I got a phone call from my parents, and we're chatting about my new job, and, how did I like it, and, they wanted to know all of the details. And I couldn't really explain anything. I didn't know what the company did. I didn't really know what my part was in the whole company. And all I knew is I was kind of in charge of sampling, whatever that meant, and kind of getting people to take surveys. I didn't know how these people were taking them, but I knew I was pressing some buttons, and I learned what buttons to press. I learned when to press them in that first week, but I really couldn't tell you what this industry was about, what the company did. So I actually remember early on, after maybe a month at the company, a friend asked me the same question again, and I said, well, I think we sell people.
I've said that before.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have any idea. So when I became a manager, I always made sure to start high, company-wide level training first, get to know all the departments, and how they relate to each other, at least for that first week.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of companies' downfall is that they don't give you that access or proper onboarding when you first start. I know when I started at Innovate a couple of years ago, I was really impressed that every single employee that comes through the door, during that first couple of weeks, they're meeting with our founders, they're meeting with the department heads, and they're really getting that global understanding of the company, our overarching goals, and how each department contributes to overall success and who the key players are. I think that's the key, is access from the top down and showing employees that they belong to something that matters and how they fit into that.
Yeah, once they can understand, where they fit into this grand big picture, they feel like they belong, they feel like they know what their part is. And kind of once they understand that piece, I think then you can move into some normal training for their individual roles.
Right.
And of course, timing can really depend on experience. I've had project managers kind of get up to speed in 2 or 3 weeks if they've had a lot of experience, or it may take 6 to 8 weeks depending if they're new to the industry. Yeah. So that depends, shadowing, practice, all that stuff is pretty typical. But after you can finish up this full-scale training, we can move into this new piece of assessments, which I'm really excited to talk to you about. So, I think one of the more bitter parts of being a manager is kind of when a new hire isn't living up to your expectations, when your team's underperforming. It can be pretty stressful, trying to pinpoint those trouble areas for each person or your team, and then create next steps, individually, team-wide. It's really quite difficult, and it is really, really time-consuming as well. I found, I was spending hours and hours kind of analyzing each person's skill level, looking through all of their emails, analyzing the team on a more full-scale level, having these, let's say, long-winded discussions, and really trying to diagnose, what was going on with my team, and trying to create this perfect blend of personalities. So after more experience and definitely some cocktails,
I hear you.
Yeah, I realized that I needed to be more efficient. I needed to create maybe something that's more formalized to help me and other managers recognize and kind of display easily employee comprehension on maybe a more multilateral scale, but also unified. I think, one of the truths that we all learn as we continue on in our careers is that everyone learns at different speeds and kind of showcases their knowledge in their own ways. For example, me, I'm a very visual learner. I find that I'm the most successful when I watch someone do something. Like if they show it to me once, I can do that forever. But then, take someone as close to me as my brother is completely verbal learner. Someone has to explain something to him first, and then he can tackle it. So it got me thinking that, we really need to cater to individual learning methods and understand a full scope of someone's comprehension. So I kind of developed this 3-level formal assessment that pinpoints comprehension level. It can quantify performance and also identify areas for further improvement and continued education. So now whether you're assessing one employee or actually a whole department or a whole company, this process really does work. So to get everyone a little bit, I'm going to explain a little bit about the approach in detail. So I like to first start with a verbal exam. Now for me, that's the easiest way, a good insight into seeing how your employee kind of explains concepts or situations, maybe some troubleshooting. I like to kind of go with easier concepts at first and then segue into something more complex so that our conversation can be more conversational, less like an assessment and more like a conversation. And that way you can, show comprehension and expression on important topics. For example, for me and my team, for project managers, I might start with some everyday kind of job questions, like what do redirects do? Why do we use them? Why do we pass unique variables? And then kind of move into something more situational, like what would you do if a project starts to go downhill?
Right, and just to interject really quickly, I think it's important to note that this assessment can be catered and customized for different teams within your organization. So to give you a couple examples, for my team, I would probably start with questions more like a client would ask. So how big is your panel? What do you have targeted? What does your feasibility look like for certain groups? Really make sure that they have that understanding and know our internal capabilities. So you're going to ask multiple questions, and then you're going to grade those on a 10-point scale. I think it's best to choose around 5 questions, and that creates a final score of 50.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do like to keep each section to 50 points so they're even, and then at the end of the day, someone has a score out of 150. So once we've kind of finished up this verbal exam, we can go into a more written exam. Being market research, survey-based, I like to write a survey. So employees can take it. I use SurveyMonkey, but you can kind of write up a survey, and it can cover lots of different aspects, of course. I prefer to cover maybe 3 different segments: market research sampling as a whole, company-wide policies, and then individual job role.
Yep. So again, some examples for everyone on questions that we use for the written exam are what is the definition of IR versus conversion? When you're on a kickoff call with a client, what are 3 main questions that you should always be asking? For the company policies, it could be something like, are we able to collect and provide our clients with the panelist PII? In what situations is that, okay, and what situations is it not okay? The design of the survey should vary from multiple choice to open-ends. You can even throw in some grids. I know we all love grids. And by having those different question types, you're going to be able to determine aided awareness versus unaided awareness on your topic.
Yeah, I think that's a key to me in the written exam, is that, having those different types of questions can really give and shed some light on different ways of understanding. If someone can pick out the definition of incidence-based versus kind of having to write it down, it does give you kind of a more well-rounded view into what they know and what they don't know. But finally, the final piece here is a practical assessment. And what I mean by that is kind of showing how your employee can take the knowledge that they know and actually apply it in a real life scenario. So, for example, project manager, I would set up, let's say, a fake booking order and have them set up the project in our tool according to all the information I've provided there. And I like to give them something a little bit vague, something that can be interpreted several ways. See the choices that they make, see why they've made those choices, allow them to explain those choices. And again, saying there's no wrong answer, it's just I want to see why they're doing things the way that they're doing them, and how they can take an everyday scenario and use it and create something. So again, I create that for that 50-point scale, and it really gives that well-rounded insight into how PMs think and why they're making certain decisions. So overall, there we go, verbal, written, practical, each on a 50-point scale. And I like to span it over, a week, maybe 2 weeks. I find if you do it all one day, it's very
brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's a lot of fatigue. So I like to spread it out amongst a couple different days. And during the time, I like to urge my team to see the assessment more as a learning tool, not actually an assessment, and this opportunity to show them what they know and actually what they don't know. That enables me too, as their manager, to understand how it can help them succeed further and what I can do to close the knowledge gap.
Yeah, so after you do your assessment, I really think that it's important that you take attendance. What I mean by this is knowing what's trending within your group. Is everyone on the same page with a new initiative that you just rolled out? Are multiple people making the same mistakes? Are you getting asked the same questions over and over? Is there a process that you could tweak to make your team more efficient? I really can't stress enough that it's so important that you're taking attendance and making notes of these trends, and that you're addressing anything that they're struggling with right away in the moment.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I mean, we all know this industry never sleeps.
Never.
And if you put something off and you don't address it right away, like, nothing gets solved, and your team will keep making the same mistake, and you really run this risk of everything kind of falling apart. So definitely carve out time to speak to your team. I say at least once a week.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have some time put on my calendar every week, and I try and talk with each individual member as well as having those group meetings at least once a week. If you can do it more, that's awesome. I think that's even better. But when you're having those discussions and those meetings, really listen to the good, the bad, the ugly. Give them advice on how they can overcome any struggles that they're having. But also, I think it's important that you celebrate any victories that they've achieved. Staying connected as their leader and being there to give them that real-time feedback. I actually use something called the 360 review. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's not necessarily a formal review that most people are used to once a year. It's more of a loose review that can be given as many times as needed. It creates that open communication for members of your team and allows them to feel comfortable giving you feedback on things that they think might be able to be improved within the company, and specifically for you as a manager. I've used this for several years, and I think it's really helped my team to become that strong, fine-oiled machine. But more importantly, it's really helped me to become a better leader. I think just because we're managers, that doesn't mean we're exempt from learning something ourselves. So don't be afraid, as I like to say, to get into the trenches with your team.
Yeah, I think that's something kind of different we do here at Innovate too. Get your hands dirty.
We get dirty.
Yeah, be a part of it. Be a part of the team. I think it really showcases that we're all students and teachers both. I think it's really the fastest way to learn is teaching someone.
Mm-hmm.
Quick side note, like I remember back maybe, I don't know, first, second grade, not sure when you learned this, but I was having a lot of trouble learning to use scissors. I think that's a left-handed.
Okay.
I think it's a left-handed problem.
Okay.
But I really couldn't get a hang of it. I was having a lot of trouble, and I remember one day coming home, my mom handed me a pair of scissors, and she said that I had to teach my little brother, who's also a lefty,
Nice.
to use them. And I was really struggling with it. But the second I had to teach him, I was so determined to show him the right way that I actually learned to do it myself. I'd say I'm still better at scissors, but
right. Debatable.
but I did. I learned how to do it immediately, and I think that kind of just showcases that anything starting from childhood, the best way to learn is to teach. And so I take that sentiment into my team, and during our weekly meetings, one of the team members will present a topic of their expertise and kind of share that with the team, field questions, and really become the expert in that topic. And I think that by enabling multiple experts, our Innovate University can always be open.
Yeah.
We're not relying on one person to be the expert in everything. Everyone has their own expertise. So when each person can be a teacher, they can feel more valued and accountable to the rest of the team.
Yep, exactly. I think when that happens, you create this sweet spot, so to speak, where each of your team members feels appreciated. They're accountable for their work, and they recognize that there's always room for improvement. The learning never ends. We like to use this little phrase here at Innovate. I know you'll know this one, Amanda. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's our favorite phrase.
It's my favorite. And, I think it really just showcases that a well-oiled, great team can make your company, achieve so many great things. But so now we've got our stellar candidate.
Mm-hmm.
We've assessed them. They're going through some continued training, like what's next. And I think the final kind of innovative twist on this new approach is that we not only have our assessment, but we take the assessment and actually create a tangible kind of data-centric certification program internally. So, we've had our assessment and we've created a score for every employee out of 150 points. So then their levels can be broken down into categories based on their scores. Here at Innovate, I created 5 categories of aptitude. So those are fresh, basic, moderate, complex, and expert. And those really help me assign, let's say, workload. That's been a good key for success, is I'm able to assign this workload based on general skills, general knowledge, but I'm also promoting the ability in my team to level up. And I think that by slightly gamifying employee knowledge, it encourages the drive to succeed, and it encourages the elevation of your whole team, like quite literally to the next level. These categories, they really serve as tangible quarterly goals and expectations for growth. It's very transparent. You know where you're at. You know where you should be going. And I think this kind of focus on personal development, it not only helps with retention rates, but it also creates a very healthy return of investment, of this program and the time. We actually did some employee CSATs and some conversations with our employees, and we found that this program does enhance employee satisfaction overall and has this motivation to succeed and to level up. So it's really showing that everyone's appreciating that they can understand their level. They know where they're at. They know where they need to do to improve. They feel that support by management to get them to the next level, and they're given an easy pathway to promotion too. So essentially, we're kind of simultaneously providing this guideline for career growth while also allowing management to evaluate individuals, team comprehension, quantify performance, and identify these areas for improvement.
Yep. So how does this all translate to providing excellent client service? So first, you found the Crown Royal candidate, top shelf. You introduce and welcome them to the family with open arms. You create that foundation and stability for them. Then after a few weeks of aging, you may uncover the bittersweet truth that maybe they need a little bit more time to develop. I think this is okay, though, because we've set them up to go through that extensive training. And within the training, we're all elevating each other to that next level of excellence. The twist is that they're able to take their learnings and grow their career within the organization with certifications. We're carving out that clear career path for them. That's going to give them purpose, and it creates trust and decreases your turnover rate, like you just mentioned.
Mhm.
So all of this combined, it gives you that perfect cocktail or mix. Everyone's communicating and collaborating with one another. We're all playing nice in the kiddie pool. There's this continued education. You're creating confidence, and this is naturally going to translate over to the client side. Your team isn't going to be afraid to raise the red flag if they feel that project is going off the cliff, which we know can happen from time to time. Then they have those proper skills and experience to give them the confidence to be on those client calls and provide proper feedback. They're more nimble. They're able to adapt to changes quickly. And something we put a lot of emphasis on here is being more proactive rather than reactive. Overall, I think there's so much over communication, both internally and externally, that it really leaves no place for assumptions. I think we know how much trouble we can get into if we assume.
Yeah, definitely. Like thinking about this analogy we're using here with alcohol, I mean, I think assumptions are like a bad hangover.
Stop it, that's perfect. That's so true.
I mean,
it
hits you when you least expect it. You might have thought you were prepared, and then all of a sudden, all these things are happening. You've got this hangover. But I think that happens when we kind of make this mistake of playing the guessing game, you know, whether that's a client expectation or grasping the knowledge of your staff, knowing what they know and what they don't know. I think we've all made that kind of mistake. But by building this transparent understanding and empowerment of your team, you'll have that confidence, and they'll have that confidence to ensure white glove service, and you'll have the knowledge to propel them to that next level. I think that a team that really knows and understands their strengths and weaknesses and feels supported and enabled, it's always going to stand out. And there you're going to gain those repeat clients, great book of business, happy employees. I really think that's probably a cherry on top.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think it gets much sweeter than that, for sure.
Time for a cocktail?
Yeah.
Well, it's really cool stuff. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Brittany. I like it. Now I'm a little bit thirsty myself.
Yeah. It's not 5 o'clock, unfortunately.
Shame. So we do have a couple questions coming in, so I'm just going to jump right into these. So Jessica asks, what kind of visibility do you provide for your employees on their scores? Amanda, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. That's a good question. You know, I like to be transparent, and I do share the employee scores with each individual. I'm not sharing them on a team-wide basis. That's kind of more upper management to know. But I do like to share those scores. I think it's important for employees to understand exactly where they're at, how their points kind of translate into certain categories, and how far they need to go to get to that next category. So I like being transparent.
Very cool. Anthony asks, what are the next steps if someone doesn't perform well on the assessment? What is the time frame for following up, etc.?
Gotcha. So if somebody doesn't perform well on the assessment, obviously we have their score in hand, and we can then pinpoint what type of training they need with their direct reports or with us, and we kind of go through that training depending on their score. It could be 2 weeks of training, it could be 4 weeks of training, or it could be 6 weeks. I mean, it just depends. The time frame for follow-up, I would say 2 to 6 weeks, depending on what their score came out to be.
Yeah, I definitely like to check in at least quarterly, and that would probably be the minimum.
Yep.
But certainly, you know, following up is always key.
Cool. And then we have a question from Gail. Are there any carrots or consequences for leveling up or down?
Oh, what a great question. Yes, absolutely. I think, let's see. So what we do, to give a little rundown here, I do a full assessment Q1 and Q3. And then we'll do kind of one level of the assessment, Q2 and Q4 at the beginning. And what the incentives are is you level up, and you can actually get a bonus. We are, you know, we're good with that. Is that if you start at a certain level and at the next review you've leveled up, we actually offer monetary bonuses for that.
Yeah, we definitely reward.
Yeah, we're definitely offering those carrots, the incentives. And of course, you know, leveling up, you've leveled up enough times, like that's going to lead also to an actual promotion and you know, raises as well. But as for consequences, yeah, you know, there has to be consequences for not doing as well as you've done. You know, the expectation is you take an exam and 6 months later, you know, you should be doing better.
Yep.
So if an employee hasn't done better by the next review, we do put them on a performance improvement plan, and that will really depend on how much their score has changed. But you know, there is that consequence as well, and a performance improvement plan is more formal. You know, outlined guidelines of what they need to do in order to get back on track.
All right, great. And I'm not seeing any other questions. Last chance. All right, cool. Well, we're going to close out here. I know that there is one extra Easter egg you guys have, or I guess I should say a chaser. So one last slide for those of you who stuck on until the very end here. Would either of you like to?
Yeah. So we talked about at the beginning refashioning that old-fashioned. I think this is the most important slide, so make sure you screenshot it, take a picture. We'll obviously share it out later. But make yourself this refashioned old-fashioned that we found. It's delicious. And we're definitely cheersing to you from afar. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Very cool. I want to thank everyone on the line for coming out for today's webinar. Thank you again, Brittany and Amanda. That was excellent. Some really great stuff in there. Is there a way, if anyone has any follow-up questions about anything that was covered here, reach out to you guys directly?
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. And great. Well, thank you again for joining us, everyone. This concludes today's webinar. Hope you have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.